Welcome to Hack Talkz, brought to you by the NetWitness Incident Response Team, your weekly dive into the hottest picks, the strangest twists, and the you couldn't make this up moments in global cybersecurity. Every week, we break down what's happening out there, challenge a bit of a conventional thinking, and of course, we crown this week's epic fail. My name is Gordon Dixon, your host based in Glasgow, Scotland. I'm joined as always by Stefano Maccaglia, the director based in Rome, Italy. Ciao, Stefano.
Ciao, guys.
And James Sobel, Senior Manager in Merritt Island, Florida. Hi, James. Great to have you both here.
Hey. Good to be here.
You will be assimilated.
All right, let's start with in the news, the stories that grabbed our attention this week. There's been no shortage of eyebrow raisers. So, Stefano, what in particular caught your eye this week?
Yeah, today we'll speak about legacy protocols that refuse to die. We are speaking about NTLM version 1, an authentication protocol that has been known to be insecure since the last millennium, and yet is somehow still running in critical system in 2026. For this exact reason, and because we know as an IR responder how persistent is the usage of this protocol, Mandiant and Google Cloud have now released a public rainbow table for NTLM version 1 to make one point clear. If you are still using this protocol, attackers don't need supercomputers or any specific hardware. They just need to have enough decent GPU and a bit of patience. Basically, they brought us a quicker and faster version to crack this protocol ashes in order to force, basically, the companies and more in general, the people to get rid of this very old protocol and to move to more recent version of it that are much better in terms of encryption and protection. James, what you think?
I think it is... I'm trying to come up with the descriptor for it, right? I mean, it's scary. It's annoying. It's something that we see in our reports when we're doing compromise assessments, when we're doing rapid deployments to our customers, old protocols, right? And I assume most organizations think there's no way that's going on, and then it is going on. So kudos to the Mandy and Google team for coming up with a capability that will help folks like ourselves and security teams more in general to be able to ferret this out, to be able to see these protocols. I mean, this is something that also a tool like NetWitness would be able to see, or there are other tools that would be able to see these protocols. But it is disappointing to know that this is still a topic, that organizations are still working to help their leaders understand and deal with this. Hopefully this is something that makes a dent, makes a difference, makes this problem go away.
Just to wrap it up, NetNTLM version 1 has been dead for years. Organizations just refuse to hold the funeral. By publishing rainbow tables, Mandiant essentially sent out the invitation and hired a band. Now there is no excuse left. If your environment still speaks this protocol, it's not you using a legacy feature. It's broadcasting a welcome message to attackers that might well read, mostly harmless targets are here. So
yeah.
Absolutely, and certainly reminds us all that there's an important aspect of cybersecurity is good housekeeping and keeping an eye on every aspect of your network and your system and your infrastructure. Thank you.
Resistance is futile.
Now on to the moment of truth, this week's epic fail. This is where we look at a cyber blunder, a slip-up, or a downright questionable decision, and we rate it on our epic fail scale from 0 to 10. 0 is basically a rounding error, mostly harmless, and 10 is the full what the FIM were we thinking. So let's break down today's contender. And Stefano, you're bringing us this week's epic fail. Tell us more.
Yes, in this case is a bit of a funny story, obviously in the middle of a very tragic situation. So basically, Iranian activists during the protest this last week, they basically took control upon the satellite transmission of the state media, and they basically aired different messages and different videos regarding, let's say, the protest against the traditional, let's say, programs that were broadcasted by the government, the regime. So it's good, and I think it's worth to bring this to the message, just to say this is another way for the people to react to this oppression. And obviously, we don't want to jump into, let's say, politics, but surely this is a big epic fail for the Iranian regime. James, what you think?
I think it's a fail for the regime. It is a wake-up call for all of us, right? Old forms of information sharing and news gathering, news dissemination, propaganda. I mean, like you said, politics aside, one interesting element of this is how easily, a small asymmetric group got in and delivered their message. That is a wake-up call. Certainly a failure on the people who got their systems taken over, their news media taken over, but a wake-up call for the rest of us, for sure.
And I think that's the interesting point, isn't it? We've spoken about sort of state on state attacks, and this brings in this sort of different element, and the fact that non-state actors can use this, but also within times of protest or turbulence or for economic gain as well. So if you are in charge of government infrastructure and government systems, it's now not just about those traditional other state actors that you need to be wary and protective of. There are so many other forces, maybe backed by different organizations and different governments, but the threats are getting dispersed amongst a wider group of people, and I think that's something to make everyone mindful of.
And a quick and brief, let's say, comment about this whole story. It's the informational warfare version of building an enormous fortress wall that was the state media, and then forgetting to lock the main gate before going on holiday. So that is in a sense, this week epic fail. James, Gordon, what you think about this? I will score 7 in this one.
Okay, so Stefano, you're going for 7 on our scale from 0 to 10. James, yes. where are you on this? What number would you give
I'm going to say a 5 on this. I think this is a warning message to us, and I didn't put a lot of credibility into the fortress builders there, but I think this is a 5.
Okay, I've maybe watched too many sort of political films or mysteries and thrillers, so I'm leaning more towards the 7. So I think I'll go for 7 this time as well. So there we are. That's our epic fail for this week.
This week's epic fail for is 7.
And if you're thinking and listening to this and say, oh, I've seen something much bigger than that, or you guys have got that number wrong, this is much higher or much lower, then please let us know. Leave your messages, your comments in underneath this video, or contact us directly. And also suggest your own epic fail, and we can include that in a next show. Before we wrap up, let's flip the mood, and with this week's mighty win, something genuinely uplifting from the cyber world, a moment of competence, cleverness, or just a rare feel-good story in a sometimes gloomy landscape. This week, I'm going to bring a question to you both for our mighty win section. So in the news while we're recording this episode is the World Economic Forum in Davos, where all the world leaders and CEOs of major corporations come together. So my question to you, Stefano and James, is if we were to have a session with this group on cybersecurity, what things would we want to get across to the world leaders at Davos? So Stefano, what would you be sharing with that audience?
Well, for sure, there are two items here. One is surely to try to find a common ground regarding the way we approach the cybersecurity in general, because there are still many, let's say, hurdles between even internally, even in the same countries, but in different market sectors. And surely it's important that now we start coordinating our efforts to fight against specific threats like the cyber criminals at the global stage. And second thing is connected with that, but is more related to the financial aspect of this. We are still having a lot of trouble in pinpointing where the fruit of the, let's say, frauds are moved. The money coming from the frauds are moving. I know that this is a big thing, but surely it's important that we start addressing the better way, the pinpointing, the tracking about the flow, the economics flow coming from the cyber criminals gangs, because today it's still a mess to define and to recover the money stolen. So that is surely a topic that I think Davos should discuss a bit.
Thank you. And James, if you were to have a session, have the ear of the world's leaders, what would you want to share with them?
Oh, there's so much to discuss, isn't there, Gordon? But I think, focusing in on cybersecurity and the topics we talk about often, I think some high-level understanding across the globe about what cyber crime is. What are the universal laws around? We sort of agree, kind of murder's murder and theft is theft. But it gets murky when we start talking about, and there's a lot of gray areas when we get into the cyber world. And some of that might be because it facilitates the use of these things in geopolitics and in espionage and others. Some, we need to come together on as a globe on what we think is appropriate and inappropriate, where the lines are. This might help us make strides in areas like accountability and privacy and help us do away with some of the worst elements that we have to deal with in this area. So that's something that I'd like to see come out of that group.
Fantastic. And as I was putting this question together, one thing struck me was that people at that highest level of authority and responsibility often have people reporting to them or consulting to them, but there's nothing like a lived experience. So my pitch to the organizers at Davos would be for us to run a tabletop exercise with the world leaders and the CEOs and have them actually experience what it's like to not be in control, to have information come through to you piece by piece, and to prioritize how to respond and what tools are available to you to be able to shut down a risk or to be able to identify how much has been impacted on your organization. So it sounds a little bit like a sales pitch, but I think to take them through a NetWitness incident response tabletop experience would be a great way for them to understand more about cybersecurity.
Good point, Gordon.
Love it. Yeah.
You have been watching Hack Talkz.
Fantastic. So that's our mighty win for the world for this particular week. Think more about where the money comes from, understand more about cybercrime and the impact of it, and maybe even have a go at feeling what it's like to be in that situation at the front end of an attack and the impact that it has on your organization or your government infrastructure. So a huge thanks to Stefano and James for joining me, and thanks to you for tuning in. This has been Hack Talkz from NetWitness Incident Response, and we'll see you next time. So it's goodbye from me, Gordon Dixon.
Bring the towel from Stefano.
Signing off here in Merritt Island from James. Take care.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye, everyone.